So good morning and welcome to the webinar From a Perfect Image to a Competitive Edge. To briefly introduce myself, my name is Lena Peterson. I'm a senior consultant at MindForest. And today from MindForest, I'm here with our managing partner, Nico Hoffeld. And from Bloom, I'm happy to introduce you to the managing partner, Steph Neukam, and the Director for Strategy and Insights, Frank Albrecht. The webinar is a collaboration between Bloom and MindForest on the topic of employer branding and the correlation with company culture. You might ask yourself how it got to this collaboration between Bloom and MindForest, because Bloom is a creative agency and MindForest a change management company, and also from two different countries. As with many partnerships, the idea grew out of a market need for looking at employer branding and cultural change within an organization as a whole. Around 70% of all change projects fail, and the change of the employer branding of a company isn't any different. So once the strategy and purpose has been defined and agreed upon, the real work starts to make it credible and livable from the inside out, and this also long term. It has a huge impact on everything within a company, and this is important to project it to the outside. Therefore, Bloom, being an expert in employer branding and MindForest in the change management, we decided to join forces to offer a complete solution when tackling this issue. Now, let me first introduce you to Frank Albrecht, who will tell us more about Bloom. Frank, it's over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Lene, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for listening. Thanks for joining us today. Yeah, Bloom is a medium-sized communications agency based in Munich and Nuremberg. We have around 50 employees all in all. And yeah, what's so special about us? We have an ambitious mission saying grow to your true size, which means that we are the ones who will find your success factor, the great power in your brand DNA, if you will, that will make you grow to the size that you deserve. Let's call it briefly, it's a brand success in the digital era, if you like. And we do this following our three main values, which are leverage, meaning we seek to make a difference for all of our clients in everything we do. Secondly, it's humanity, because we think we're quite nice people and we love to work with nice clients. And the third one is stringency. Yeah, we stick to what we believe in. So yeah, values like consistency, passion, and quality are really high standard at Bloom, and are values that we will never gonna give up. What can you buy from us? Yeah, you will find it in those four fields of action, which are brand strategy, design, digital solutions, and campaigning. Anything you need to drive a brand. And as you can see in the line above, I think we do that quite successfully. So that's Bloom in a very short version. And now I would like to pass over the mic to Nico, who will present our partner MindForest. Thanks for listening, and we'll meet again in a minute.
Okay, thank you, Frank. Welcome everybody, and thank you also for joining. My name is Nico Hoffeld, and I'm one of the managing partners of MindForest. MindForest is a Luxembourgish consultant company specialized in change management. It was founded in 2000. At that time, my partner was in charge of a research institute in Luxembourg, and he noticed that projects often seem perfect on paper in theory, but in practice, they often failed. And the reason was, and is still simple, because the human factor was not considered, was completely forgotten. And that was the birth of MindForest. And since then, we put the human factor in the center of our activity, and all our projects are centered around people. We are working with people. That is our job. Today, we employ around 30 collaborators from 8 different countries, which is typical for Luxembourg. And we are operating with a wide range of competencies linked all to change management. We have psychologists, we have change managers, we have IT people, specialists in communication, documentation, and so on and so on. I think there are 15 different competencies at MindForest. We are active in Luxembourg, of course, and also internationally, and in a wide variety of sectors, administrations, banking, finance, and in every kind of sectors and in fields. Our aim and our mission statement, and you can read it on our slide, we love to help our clients to develop their capacity to achieve. And how do we do that? Our activities are built on 4 major and main pillars. The first one is the strategy activation. It means that we help our clients to ensure that their strategies are lived and are living and do not only exist on slides. Then we help our clients to increase their employee engagement. Just very shortly, in cooperation with the Sacred Heart University in Luxembourg, we have developed a model which makes it possible to measure an increase in employee engagement. The result is that less working, time lost, reduced turnover, increased employee loyalty, increased productivity and profitability. This is very important for us and is a very important tool for our work. We help our clients also to optimize their working processes, mainly in the context of orga projects, mergers, or IT rollouts. And then finally, we help them to create a goal-oriented and customer-centric culture. For example, you take it, the cultural intelligence, innovation, safety, and so on. And I think this is what we are talking about today. And I think I give now the floor back to Lene. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much for listening and enjoy.
Thank you, Nico. So to know more about the both companies, please feel free to visit the respective websites and sign up for the newsletter, and of course follow us on social media such as LinkedIn and YouTube. Now, before we just dig deeper into the subject, just from a technical aspect, I just want to mention that we are recording the webinar. We will edit the video to not show any of the audience faces. However, if someone would not like to be heard in the video, please let us know now. And then, of course, use the chat for your questions and comments throughout the webinar. Now, let's get started with the presentations. First, Frank will talk about the hidden benefits of employer branding, and afterwards you will hear from me again, where I will speak about the organizational culture and how to use it to secure the future of your company. So now, without further ado, Frank, the floor is yours.
Okay, thanks, Lene. Yeah, the hidden benefits of employer branding is the name of this lecture, and yeah, in my role as a marketing strategist, I've noticed how employer branding has really taken off in the last years. The logic behind it is as simple as obvious. If you don't manage to present your company in an attractive light, you will lose the struggle for skilled workers. In fact, there's so much more about employer branding than just creating a perfect image for applicants. And this is why today I would like to show you how employer branding can pay off for your company, but also for you personally, in your role, in your function, in many, many ways. The first question that we have to ask is, why has employer branding become so important? Is it just because of this war for talent? Of course, it's a main factor, but coming with that, demands have increased, of course. We're talking about benefits, flexible working hours, work-life balance, all these things. Then there has been a generational change. Generations Y and Z have much more a critical attitude. So they ask questions like, does this company care about its employees, about the environment, our society, all these things. And lastly, communication technology has developed tremendously. Today, candidates use a multitude of touch points to address your company, and they have an always-on mentality. So they want to get their answers right here, right now. And the task for the companies is to find the right answers to all these questions and to create a fit between both sides. Yeah, looks like that. So yeah, we're talking about widely diversified questions, and yeah, sometimes very fundamental questions. Therefore, let's move on to the process itself, because the process has to take all these aspects into account. it can't just say, we want to create a perfect image, who cares what's behind it. Your target groups will not let you get away with it. So the joint process of Bloom and MindForest has 6 steps to go through, and it starts at the inside of the company. The first part is the auditing part, which is mainly about research. We need to know where does this company want to go, so we need to know how the company strategy is, because we have to align to it. We need to know how is the company, how is the brand perceived internally and externally, what is happening in the recruitment market, and how are competitors positioned. So we try to get a 360 degrees perspective on the brand to get a good foundation for our strategic work. The second part is about strategy, of course, and in marketing, strategies always start with the target groups, which we have to develop. We ask questions like, okay, who is our potential? Who suits us? What are these people looking for? And how can we convince them? Maybe also, to what extent do we have to change ourselves? Because employer branding processes are always change processes too, because you always have to align to developments from the inside or the outside. And this means nothing more than change. The outcome of the strategy part is then the employer value proposition. So the proposition we are talking about to the outside in our campaigning. Then comes the creative part, visualizing, which means that we give all these abstract values and ideas an appearance in words, in messages, in imagery. And then comes the staging. So we're talking about content, where do we source it from, which touch points do we have to address, and what campaign idea puts it all together and makes us convincing. Maybe the marketing guys amongst us would say, okay, the thing is staged, so perfect, let's move on. But as I said, the employer branding process starts at the inside. We bring it to the outside, but in the end, we have to mirror all that back into the inside, because both sides have to be aligned. And that's why we cooperate with MindForest, because it's their specialty to do the activation. It's about translating a strategy into behavior, about engaging employees. And the 6th part is the empowerment, because we want to sustainably anchor our strategy in the company. So keyword here is corporate culture. So you see, a good process therefore encompasses all relevant aspects of marketing, human resources work, corporate management. It's about many things like identity, attitude, and culture. And in other words, it basically concerns the whole company in all its facets. And therein lies a great opportunity for the company, but also for the leading actor in this play, in this process. So now we come to the hidden benefits that I promised you in the headline. The first one is that employer branding breaks down silos. Let's start right at the beginning. We've seen that for a successful employer branding process, you need all kinds of knowledge and skills, and you have to get them mostly from the inside. Often it's like that. The departments work from themselves rather than together with each other. At least it's our experience still. And in case you need to draw on this expertise, it can sometimes get a little bit tough. So the good news is that employer branding really arouses curiosity. So if a department doesn't get involved right from the start, it usually does once the process has been launched. Why is that so? I believe it's because there's something to see. Sometimes it's very profane, but the results will be taken to the outside world, and employees from these departments will be addressed about it. So you can hardly get out of it. So it's better to contribute than to face the results of fait accompli. And between ourselves, it's sometimes more fun than just juggling with numbers all day. That means that it's seldom easier to get colleagues from other departments to the table. Therefore, an employer branding process can be a good starting point for cooperation. And as you will see, you will automatically find links to related issues that need to be resolved too. And thus you can build the first bridges for this in advance at the start of the process. Secondly, employer branding drives engagement. I've brought you a little diagram, which is very simple. It says only that you do not need too many impulses to get employees on board. Taking part in workshops, surveys, photo shootings, even video productions, etc. All that is possible. I believe it's because all these things are about the employees themselves, about their image, the image that they have from themselves, how they want to see themselves. Maybe it's also about the experience you get from taking part in such a process, or about the feeling of being relevant. There can be many, many reasons, but the better you carry the process into the company, the more you get back. So employer branding really activates. I want to show you an example where it worked out really well. We did this project for PayOne, which is the leading brand and payment market in Germany. And we did it the year before last year. And it shows that continuous feedback and involvement really pays off. The branding process was a result of a merger, and we accompanied it with many, many workshops. And this brings a wonderful mechanism to the surface, because you bring something like appreciation into the company, to the employees, and you get something back right now in this moment, namely employees who engage with the company, its values, its culture. So if you do well, you can set a whole company in motion by that. And the PayOne employer branding project has been significantly important in the success of this merger and of this brand. It's this internal impact, the positive image these guys had from themselves that is currently helping them to stay resilient in the meanwhile over next merger they are going through. And thirdly, employer branding creates identity. Yes, identity doesn't come with a cool color code or a successful campaign. It comes from within. I've told you before, Bloom is always looking for the inner power of companies, and employer branding works from the inside out. The process, the basic idea of the company, the DNA, has to be worked out and developed together with the employees. We ask questions like, okay, why do we think the way we do them? What do we believe in? All these questions behind DNA, purpose, brand idea, whatever you will, they are very abstract and intangible. You see that displayed in our iceberg image, because all these questions that are abstract are below the waterline. You can see it, you can touch it. And the good thing is that employer branding gives this DNA, this idea of the company, an image and a word. It becomes visible, it becomes tangible, and now everybody can deal with it, and everybody can align his idea of working at the company with the images he sees, and in the end can maybe say, okay, yes, it's worth it, or yes, that's what makes us. All of a sudden, and all these ideas are not abstract anymore, they are becoming concrete. So employer branding brings the central idea of the company to the surface, so that it's becoming visible for anybody. Let's look at our example from HV, which is a leading hydraulics manufacturer in Germany. And the headline says, without you, nothing moves. And I like this headline very much because this is where appreciation meets self-confidence. So you see in good companies, these both are a unity. So this leads to a position of strength because all work is based now on the same idea. And this visibility of one's own values strengthens community, the sense of belonging, and the sense of security. Number 4, employer branding makes the ambition tangible. I've already been talking about employer branding being a kind of a change process. And we all know for change processes, you have to take some steps, one after the other, to get to your goal. And the positive thing here is that employer branding is not only about showing a good image of the current state of the company or of the current state of working at the company. It's also about showing where you want to go. The employees, therefore, do not see themselves in a right now, but maybe themselves in the future or themselves in a target state. So this is an optimal springboard for change measures that might be unpopular sometimes because a positive image creates 1,000 times more impact than negative words to start from. So employer branding shows the ambition, and this gives a change, a positive image. And the good thing here is it has really been co-developed by the employees. You see that in the Pay One example. The employees showed themselves where they wanted to go. You know, we did this together with the employees, and we translated the company values into behavioral values and figured the campaign out. And what we did, we played it to the inside of the company. We didn't do employer branding just for advertising reasons. We played it back into the company so everybody could see, okay, what we do is appreciated, and it's fun, and it's a good thing that can really help us in future. So my advice is to use this momentum of employer branding really to also to anchor fresh values that you want to bring to the company. Then number 5, employer branding brings you closer to C-level. Maybe some of you guys say, okay, does it necessarily have to be like that? But I promise you, a strong C-level commitment drives all the success factors of internal branding, from attention via relevance, self-reflection, conviction, identity, all of these things. And the good thing here is that the C-level will become active all by himself, if they haven't initiated the project anyway. When it comes to employer branding, the whole world takes a look inside the company. So what do you think? The C-level will keep an eye on this project. And this is a great opportunity to get them involved. So convince them of the opportunities of this project, address exactly the next steps that have to be taken, and motivate them to take part in the campaign. Because this is a good chance. Following our example here in with Pay One, where the C-level was involved in a second stage, you really feel that there's much recognition of the brand, of the company, its recognition of the values and its employees, and that really strengthens the sense of togetherness. So involving the C-level is really a booster for your project success. And be sure there's no better moment to place further ideas to the management. Take this chance and use this project as a vehicle for future projects. This will also really pay off. So yes, with these 5 benefits, I would like to say goodbye to you. Thanks for listening. You have probably noticed that there's one aspect that really went through almost all of these benefits, and that's the topic of corporate culture. Corporate culture is, in the end, the place where all the treasures of employer branding lie. So my colleague Lene Pedersen from MindForest will show you why branding and culture should always be considered together, and what you need to keep in mind when working on it. So I wish you another exciting 20 minutes. Yeah, and lots of fun listening. Thank you very much.
So thank you very much, Frank. It was really interesting. And as you just said, it is really true that employer branding and culture goes hand in hand to go from the inside to the outside of a company and project what you want to project. So with Frank, we looked at the 4 first steps of the framework that we have put together in our collaboration. And now we'll look at the 2 latter ones, but with a focus on the culture. So how to activate it and empower continuously within the culture. And here we will, of course, look at culture and its role, and also how to change your culture, what to think about, and what a culture that your employees actually loves mean. So before we really get into the topic, let's just consider what culture means to us. So with this, I would like to start a little poll. I'd like to ask Jane if you can start the poll. It is anonymous, so don't worry. There's no right and wrong. And it's a multiple choice. And I suggest that you choose, let's say, maximum 3 of the answers of what culture means to you. So I'll just give you a couple of minutes to choose and read through the different options from history of the company, employees, etc. Then we'll just let people vote. So take 3 choices. What culture means to you or means most to you within an organization. You can see 11 have voted, 12, 13. So we're missing 1 person to vote. Just give it another couple of seconds. Has everyone made their choice? It looks like 1 person is missing, but it might be now with all the confusion of who is sharing.
So should I press end poll now?
Yeah, please press end poll
Okay.
and share the results.
I will.
Thank you.
And I will share the results then.
Yes, please. Perfect. So what we can see here, because now I can see the results for first, we have quite a variety. So main 3 that pops out is beliefs and behavior, and also values and information rules. Those are very important for people. Then there is management attitude and also company history that seems to go in with relations between stakeholders. So those are the 4 most important ones to this poll. So thank you very much. That's very interesting because it just shows that all of those are actually important for the culture. However, we all perceive them differently, and we all think of them as different, weighing them differently when we think about the culture. So let's dig a bit deeper into it. So just stop sharing. If you can stop sharing, that would be great. And then we will continue. So now I cannot move my slides. So great. So the corporate culture. What does this mean if we look at it really? It is really about functions and behaviors. It's the understandings between people within an organization. And it's very important that the employees identify with the culture because it influences their sense of belonging. And changing culture takes time. It's really, because of the history of the organization, something that is very difficult to change, and it can take over 5 years to change, some research has shown. And it's very, very social and complex. And it's a collective construct. However, it emerges from the individual interaction between people. And strategically, if you look at culture, It really differentiates a company from its competitors. That means that talent can be taken away or product services can be copied, but the culture is unique. This is something that cannot be taken away from a company. However, culture is constantly evolving. So this means that it can be lost and it can be reactivated. It evolves depending on different events like the departure or arrival of employees, different evolutions of the market, etc. So it's really never stable, but it has a tremendous impact. We can describe culture as an iceberg. So it's really, you have to think of it that all that you see on the surface, this is all about the processes and objectives, the strategy, etc. This is the formal part, but it only counts for 30%. You have another 70% that are under the waterline, and this is the informal system, and this is really what drives the company forward. This is the attitudes, it's the values, the informal rules, it's the engagement of employees, but also of management. This is everything that really drives the company forward, and this is where you have to look at it permanently. So if you want to change your culture, you have to align the culture and employer branding to really make sure that they are linked, and to align it also with the values and the purpose and the vision. So how do we do this? Well, there's a framework that has been, we have adapted it a bit at MindForest, but what we really do is we look at culture on 3 different levels. There is the organizational level, where the culture is woven into the DNA of the company over time. And here, whether you're trying to change or renew the culture or just strengthen an existing culture, it needs to be constantly realigned with the overall purpose, vision and strategy at this organizational level. It needs to be lived by leadership and measured and communicated and activated at all levels. And therefore, from this organizational level, you have to change and anchor the need and translate this into strategic goals and responsibilities at team level. Here, the impact on the work and functioning of the team needs to be considered and always taken into account. Then, on an individual level, the why needs to be explained from an individual standpoint. This is important as individuals often tend to resist change. It is therefore necessary to address concerns and problems, and by clarifying this impact on the individuals and their roles and responsibilities, you help them to reinforce and embed those behaviors and beliefs and value that you really desire to showcase. So with this in mind, what do we really have to look at when we want to increase our employer branding and optimize this together with the culture? So it is important that it is expressed in our daily behaviors. And therefore, there's also people who have identified that they want to work for certain companies that have a specific culture. And one great example that I want to share with you is Patagonia. Because Patagonia has today been singled out as the #1 for its CSR-focused employer branding, and everyone wants to go and work there. But it was not always like this. And Steff Neukamp from Bloom told me the other day, and it's very, very impressive what he told, that about 10 years ago on the exhibition ISPO, Patagonia was present and they were exhibiting their products. However, Greenpeace was also present, and they stormed the building, finger pointing and shouting out at Patagonia for greenwashing rather than honestly being so green and sustainable as they claimed. The police had to come to calm everything down. There was a complete mess, and it was a huge setback for Patagonia. It was only then that they really truly started to look into going deeper and walk the talk, and instead of just window dressing the sustainability, wave it into their DNA. And this they then started by doing with 3 steps. And this is what they do differently today and have changed so that they today are really sought company to work for. They always start from the beginning. So with their onboarding, new employees are given in hands-on sustainable tools and trainings in order to understand the topic better. And they always make sure that the people who start working for them are already passionate about sustainability. Then throughout the employer journey, Patagonia always provides guidance and tools for the employees to keep those activities and continue it throughout their time with Patagonia. But they don't stop there. Patagonia also inspires the sustainability as a lifestyle for its employees. The company, by that, encourages employees to practice what they preach and live these values with friends at home in their free time, basically. So this example of Patagonia really shows that you can make your employees ambassadors of your brand, and it's very, very effective and the most effective way to actually showcase your employer branding. And the culture should ideally be communicated directly through the actions and words of the employees and, of course, of management. So it's always about walking the talk and really underneath and not just on the surface. So there has been a lot of studies, and research has shown that there are 6 components that have really an impact on your culture and really to make it unique and differentiate yourself. And this is purpose, values, behaviors, recognitions, rituals, and cues. So let's look at the 6. You have purpose. This is really the motivating force, the why of an organization, and it inspires and guides all stakeholders of the organization. Now, to give you an example, Nico, in the introduction of MindForest, mentioned the slogan. He mentioned, we love to help companies and individuals to develop their capacity to achieve. This is what we live and do every day. It's really what we breathe. This is our purpose. Then we have values. Values are like guardrails that define and support the behavioral expectations of managers and, of course, every employee. And an alignment between employees' personal values and also the values of their workplace is really of interest, because this creates long-term loyalty and success. And ideally, one should have between 3 and 5, really maximum of 5 values that should be defined together. So it should be a co-creation of those so that everyone can relate to them. And at MindForest again, to give you an example, we have 5 values: focused, passionate, reliable, personal, and humane. And as you can see here in the slide, you have 5 posters. And this was really an idea to add this art as visual to symbolize and make the values more memorable in everyday life for all of us. Then we go into the behaviors. Behaviors are really patterns and attitudes of management as well as the employees, and they show in all the processes and interactions with suppliers, with prospects, customers, and future employees as well. So it's important to constantly reinforce and reactivate those desired behaviors. So they can be in the defined processes and procedures. And also, in addition, you can give coaching and training and general education that are relevant in order to improve the behaviors. Again, at MindForest, we have our mindset that we work by every day. And it is really to be a bit crazy, but be involved in everything you do, come and be prepared, and be visual. So work with visuals that people remember as well. Now, recognition is important. And it's important that the organization's leaders support and encourage this value-based behavior. And here there are 4 different types of recognition. And one of them is the formal recognition by the leadership, which is really all about the career advancement and bonuses and of course what we know. But there are more important ones, that is the informal recognition from managers as well, about upskilling and support to their employees. Then that the managers are also serving, etc. Then you also have the formal recognition by colleagues, but also informal recognition. And here, for example, at MindForest, I'm giving you an example. We have a wall of gratitude, and it was really born out of this need to be able to say thank you, be able to give feedback and relate together and connect it sometimes to our values as well, to really show you did a great job here. Or I really appreciated your support that was spontaneous when you saw that I was drowning in work or whatever it was. And this was even more important when we started to be virtual with the pandemic, because here we didn't see each other. We couldn't just say thank you in the hallway. So having it online where everyone could see it and everyone could just add a little note was making a difference. Then rituals are important. It is activities that strengthen the culture. And it supports really the collaboration and relationship within the organization between employees. And however, it should really be very healthy and voluntary. So it shouldn't appear to be forced or anything. It can come from the top, or it can come just be organized between colleagues. But the most important is that it is voluntary basis and comes from the heart. This can be everything like barbecues together, it can be birthday celebrations, after work apéros, or a virtual morning check-in. And for us at MindForest, again, this is a picture of one of our happy Lincoln drinks where we had a coffee or tea together to check in and see how everyone was doing. This we did before the pandemic as well, in person, and of course we then took it online to stay in touch. Then cues are very important. It's important that we're constantly reminded of what the culture means to us and what it symbolizes. So here again, you have physical cues and you have behavioral immediate cues, like the physical ones can be the values and posters or culture map. And the others, the more behavioral ones can be that you decide to have a meeting-free day in order to avoid and break all those meetings and combat the overload here. And then you have the aspirational, that is more long-term and more in line with charity or voluntary work that you also do within the organization and for others. And then you have more physical incentives, like an onboarding process that you put in place where people, they can really get to know the culture, understand the culture up front, and can live it throughout their journey with the company afterwards. And it's important that those are mixed. And as an example, just to give you again, we like to play, be a bit crazy, but also visual. So at MindForest, what we did was with Lego, we were then voluntarily, again, in a lunchtime, we sat down and said, okay, what does those 5 values that we have mean to us and for our work? And everyone then built and expressed themselves with Lego and for connecting it to the company. So this is what you see here in the picture. You have 5 categories of the values that everyone that participated, they were kind of expressing themselves visually and in a different way, not with words, but with Lego. And then you had this in the middle, the company, what it symbolized, what the values brought to the company. So you can see, for example, the strength, the connectedness through the lion and the small connectors. The bridging that you also see. Now, those were the 6 components that are important to remember. And just to conclude, I just want to again briefly mention the 3 guiding principles from the presentation. That is really to recognize and respect this natural evolution of the company, accept the history, and also accept the time it takes to change your culture or to reinforce it, adapt it in order to make it shine through and get to the outside as well. Then mobilize all of this cultural change and the levers of the cultural change, and think about this presentation of the framework with the 3 levels. It's really important that it is done on all 3 levels and that they are aligned. And here it's then important as a last point to develop an action plan at those levels to focus on the informal system. So the components that I just showed. Last but not least, I want you to leave with one last statistic. That is that a study shows that when a company meets the expectations of its employees, it can achieve 26% higher profit. That's quite a bit. So there's all interest in having happy employees that ensure happy customers, and happy customers that ensure the happy stakeholders and shareholders, all in that order. Now, what about you? Are you ready to review and improve your employer branding and culture? So as we mentioned before, we have the framework that we have created together with Bloom in 6 parts, and you can enter wherever you want. And this is the important part. Wherever you are in your organization, whichever maturity level you have, you can choose to go in and just work on employer branding or on the culture, mix them up, look what works for you. So I hope this has helped you to provoke a few thoughts and also to make you ready to embark on this change. Do you have any questions or thoughts to either Frank or to me? Then please unmute yourself and ask the questions, or ask the questions in the chat.
I think just to quote from the chat, Frank Trierweiler said that we should all think of shared values, trust, and the common story. And Marcus Myers agreed there was great need for a common understanding of values.
Yeah, values are very, very important. And this co-creation of the values together with the employees so that everyone is in line is really important in order to make the culture live. Absolutely.
Otherwise, I have a question about the timing and the time requested for each of these phases. Do you have any idea of the requested time, depending maybe on the size of the organization, for like the auditing, strategize? Yes, each of these different stages that is appearing on the slide.
Well, the timing usually differs according to the, let's say, the size of the project in a way. But let's say if you do that in a short track version, you come to, let's say, 2 or 3 months. Usually, if such a project is really planned, let's say planned for next year, then we put down our milestones really strictly, and it takes about let's say until half a year, let's say, for the first 4 parts. So this includes already the brand making and the, let's say, the launch of the campaign.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or anything in the chat? I cannot see the chat, but maybe Jane or Frank, can you see the chat?
There are no other comments in the chat.
No. Otherwise, if there's no further questions, as already mentioned, there will be a recording. So this will be put online on YouTube and also shared through our newsletters. So here also, if later on you have any questions, then please feel free to contact either Bloom or MindForest. We're all happy to be at service. And otherwise, from our side, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for listening. And yeah, have a nice rest of the day, anybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Enjoy.